recording now. Okay, great. Okay, who in here likes to go hunting? All right, good. So, what we're going to talk about today is some ways to be safe when you're doing your hunting, okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about some rules to follow, general rules to follow when you're out hunting, basic anatomy of a gun, if you will. We're talking about the parts and all that, you know, which part's are dangerous in, all that stuff. Yeah, we'll talk about that for sure. Okay, well, let's break into it. We're going to talk about these 4 things for sure. All right, we're going to talk about the 10 commandments of hunter safety. All right, we'll go through each one of those for sure. We're going to talk about gun anatomy. We're going to talk about shotguns. We're going to talk about rifles, muzzle loaders, even some pistols in there. You know, you don't really hunt with the pistols, but it's good to know how they work. All right, revolvers are in there too. That's right. Yep. We're also going to talk about aiming properly. Okay, we're not going to show you how to aim a gun today. That's not what this is about. We're going to tell you about, think about where you're shooting. Okay, because some weapons go further than others, and you got to think, what if I miss? Is there something behind it? So you got to have that in your mindset. And then finally, we're going to talk about getting help when you need it. All right, we're going to talk about getting some first aid if you might need it, if you fall or if accidents do happen. Because even the most safe hunter could still have accidents. Okay, so as I said, the first thing we're going to do is talk about 10 commandments. All right, 10 commandments. We'll go through them all down here. So the first things first. Treat every gun as if it was loaded. I'm sure some of you have heard me say that before. Never point a gun at anybody. Treat it as if it was loaded. All right. Always point the muzzle in a safe direction. Before we get there, does anybody know where the muzzle is? What's the muzzle? Yeah, what's the muzzle?
Like end of the gun.
Yeah, the end of the gun, where the bullet comes out. Yeah, or where the cartridge or load, whatever. Third one is be sure of your target and beyond your target. Like I was talking about proper aiming. Make sure that you're looking at your target. If you're trying to shoot a deer, for instance, make sure it's a deer, not some guy with antlers doing some funny stuff, or a clown mask. We don't want to shoot people, right? We just want to shoot the animal that we're shooting. What?
Nothing.
What?
I'm still recording.
Okay, make sure you're not moving. Okay? Never point a gun at anything you don't want to shoot. Unload guns when they're not in use. Store your guns and ammunition separately. Okay? Be sure the barrel and action are clear of obstructions. Again, we will look at this when we start talking about the anatomy of the gun, where the barrel is, where the action is. Never climb a fence or tree, cross a log or stream, or jump a ditch with a loaded gun. Basically, if you trip and fall, you don't want it unloading into your leg, foot, nugget, anything like that. You don't want to shoot yourself. Okay? Never shoot a bullet at a flat, hard surface or water, because it could bounce off, ricochet. We don't want to deal with that. And never use alcoholic beverages or drugs when handling a firearm. Good news is a lot of y'all don't even use alcohol and better not use drugs, so we're good. All right, let's talk about the anatomy of a gun. First things first, we're in Ohio, we're going to talk about shotguns, okay? The shotgun. Most of the time, most people see this one, looks like a Remington, maybe 870, I'm guessing, but this is a pump action shotgun, but the rest of them are very similar. So we start at the back here, this is the butt, okay? If you think about us, our butt's back here, same thing for a gun, it's in the back. Okay, that part goes to your shoulder. This part's the stock. Okay, that's the kind of what helps you get your hand in the right position. Then you have a safety, very important. Always have your safety on, and the trigger. You also have a trigger guard, so that if you drop your gun, it doesn't activate the trigger. That's why the trigger guard's there. Alrighty. We also have the forend. That's how you can load and unload the cartridge in this particular one. You have a ventilated rib system here. Helps cool the barrel. That's why those little slots are there. So when you go by, cool your barrel. So then blow up. We shouldn't have that problem with a pump action, but maybe. You also have a magazine tube. This is where you store your extra cartridges. Then you got your barrel. The muzzle's the very end where the projectile comes out, and then a sighting bead. There could be different sights and stuff like that. But generally speaking, that's all the parts of a shotgun. Okay? Let's talk about a muzzle loader. This is an older one, but the newer one's very similar as well. This is like what, Drew probably started with. Again, what's the back of the gun called? Just like the back of us?
The butt.
The butt. That's very good. And the stock. Okay. Then you have, this one's a little different because it's a muzzle loader. It's got a hammer and it's got the lock plate, breech. That's all the firing system. That's going to be different from newer muzzle loaders, but the same theory applies. You have some sort of way to get fire in. You also have your trigger and your trigger guard. Okay. Then we go down a little more. You have your wedge pin. You have your rear sight, so this helps you sight it a little better. Just like a shotgun, you have your barrel. Then you got your foresight and you got your muzzle again at the end. The ramrod is what you use to push the projectile down and to shoot it with the muzzle loaders. good. Thank you. Thank you, Luke. Okay, now we go on to a rifle. Same thing, butt, stock, trigger and trigger guard. Okay, you also have your barrel and your muzzle, all the same. Okay, so all the same for every weapon so far. The only difference now is with a rifle, a lot of times, especially if it's a bolt action rifle, this is how you load it. You use that bolt, you pull it in, put a new one in, put the new cartridge in. Okay, so far that's the only difference really, is how the action works. So that's the action part. All right, so if you remember before, the shotgun had the pumping action, and that's what loaded it. This one has a bolt that does it for us, and all that. Again, just like the muzzle loader, we have our sights front and back. Okay, then one more, we're gonna look at guns, pistols now. Okay, no one of you like the revolvers. You're a cowboy, huh? All right. Yes. What are you waiting for? I get to edit the crap out of this. All right, so talking about pistols. Generally two types. You have your revolvers and you got your semi-automatic.
6 minutes.
Okay, revolvers, we all know it's got the little barrel. It's the old Wild West gun. You got a little cartridge in there, it spins around, it revolves around, so they call it a revolver. Semi-automatics, your magazine goes in the bottom here, it holds your extra bullets. They load in through this action here, and then fire out, okay? But very similar to the other one. You have your barrel and you got your muzzle, so that's all the same for all the guns, right? The muzzle is where the projectile comes out, barrel holds it, okay? And with these, you have your sights. This one doesn't really have a butt, right? Because it's just half a gun. It's a small gun, so no butt. It has a grip for your hand to hold only, but it's got the trigger and trigger guard just the same, and it's got your hammer to pull it back for this revolver so you can fire it. Okay, that's how that one loads. It's an action. You have to pull this back in order to fire. Other ones have double action, single action. There's all kinds. We're not going to talk too much about actions today. But we go to this one still, muzzle. Barrel's inside here. Okay, this whole slide is basically the action for this type of gun, okay? Hammer again, you can do that, but most of the time if you pull it back one time, it'll pull the hammer, and that's why it's called semi-automatic. Every time you squeeze the trigger, you'll get one round fire, okay? Still the same with the grip. Magazine, like I said, comes in, that's where your bullets are held. With this one, the cylinder is where the bullets are held.
7 minutes.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, so that's our pistols, all right? So knowing that information, it's good to know. Now we got a different idea of how the gun works. Remember where the bullet comes out, anybody remember?
The muzzle.
The muzzle, yeah. Yeah, the muzzle, good. So we always keep the muzzle, remember it's from the Ten Commandments, in a safe direction, right? Good, okay? Now let's talk about aiming, okay? Not so much, getting your sight and all that stuff on the animal, but where do we want to shoot, okay? We can't just shoot in the air, right? What's gonna happen? We don't know where that's gonna go, that could hurt somebody, right? So we wanna be safe, always try to point at the ground or something. And then we do aim at a target, make sure we're aiming at a target that there's nothing behind it. So if I see a house behind the target I want to shoot, I'm going to try to rethink that because it could go through it. If you look here, shotguns, they don't go very far. These are measured in feet. So a slug, which is what we use here in Ohio to hunt deer, a slug goes right around 4,000 feet, a little less. So that's good. That's why we use them here. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people in a dense area, so we got to use a slug so they don't go very far. Look at a rifle though. Some of these go 4 miles almost. The bullet can go 4 miles. So think about that. If you don't think about the house 4 miles away, you could hurt somebody, right? Okay. So I got all this information here from our Department of Natural Resources. So we'll get that one done. I forgot my citations.
Oh.
Dang nabbit. And I forgot my thing.
You have to edit
That's
them.
all right. So anyway, remember what we talked about, the 10 Commandments, right? 10 Commandments of gun safety. We also talked about some anatomy of the guns, right? We also talked about where to aim, so making sure nothing's behind it so we don't hurt people. And then finally some first aid, and we'll talk about that here in just a second, okay? But, because I don't have time for first aid. But who do we call though if we do get hurt out in the woods? 911, right? And then what should we tell somebody before we go out hunting?
The location.
Where we're gonna be, right? The general area we're gonna be, so if we're not back in 4 or 5 hours, we can get help. They can come find us, get help, okay? All right, well, thank you for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good day.